I'm interested to see if BeastyQT actually sticks with mech on this map or goes bio. I think bio is a much better choice. I'll tell you why in a little bit. Let's introduce our players right in.
All right, starting in the top right from Team Empire. One of the best Terrans in the European scene, at least when he's at home and he has everything right. It is BeastyQT, also known as Alexander Kristuk. And the bottom left, we have a second appearance of the night. He's back for an encore. Will he use Infestors? Will he use Zerglings and Banelings? Maybe even both in unison. It is Dark from Team Slayers. Now, I want to clarify what I said earlier, because a lot of people say, like, well, how is Beasty one of the best players? But I don't see anything from him. Beasty says it himself. He's not a tournament player. He is allergic to gluten. So, like, he's one of those players that when he goes to a tournament, conditions are always bad because it's very difficult to be fed at an appropriate time. It's always difficult to, you know, get everything right on top of all the things because he's a very particular player with all kinds of tendencies. So, it's just tough. And not everyone can translate that to a LAN. And, I mean, Beasty admits that, but he's still, when I think in terms of raw talent and ability to macro and micro and balance everything, amazing Terran. Top 3 in Europe at his best.
Yeah, I hope BeastyQT gets a little bit more practice just going to LAN environments. And I feel like SoCal definitely has its share of, you know, local LANs, but there could be more. He could be somewhere like Canada. I think Canada has a lot more LANs than SoCal currently. So I would have loved him to get a little bit more experience that way, but I'm sure as soon as like Heart of the Swarm comes out and he's a little bit more used to actually traveling, he'll be a lot better. I can only hope, because I have to agree with you completely, Frodan. BeastyQT is one of the most fantastic players that I know in the foreign scene, and I see a very bright future for this young lad.
It's so funny too because it just seems like the Empire Terrans in general are just the rock stars of ladder, like Koss, Happy.
Yeah.
Like, it's really funny because at tournaments and stuff, like if it's IEM, Home Story, Assembly, even if everyone else is playing, having a good time partying, if the event's over, if the day hasn't started, if they played 12 hours of games, you can always see, like, if a computer is open and Happy or Cass are next to it, they're always playing ladder, man. Like, Cass hit something like 10,000 ladder games. It's absolutely absurd. Beasty comes from that kind of lineage of, like, hard-working Terrans in Europe. And, I mean, he was even teammates with Violet at one point as well and practiced a lot with him. I think his TVZ will be great.
Yeah, that's one thing you can never take away from the Empire. I don't want to even say the Terrans, just all of them. The Empire team, they are hard workers. Yes. No matter what it is, they have experience. It might not be LAN experience, but they do have experience with a ton of builds. That means it's going to be very difficult to actually catch them off guard. But, as we said, maybe the mind games, they're more susceptible to that. I know a lot less mind games are actually being played in ladder games than in, let's say, tournament matches. The mindset for a best of 3 is a lot different than just best of 1s over and over and over again. So that's something to keep in mind. But that being said, let's go over the builds really quickly. We have 1-Rax fast expand into a double gas, and of course we can see a factory and its associated reactor going down. We'll probably see something like Banshee Hellion. That's the most standard this day and age. In Cella's point of view, he went hatch first into a 17 pool. Excuse me. Dark's point of view, he went hatch first into a 17 spawning pool, got gas. This is very standard, and he'll probably get metabolic boost, transition that into a 3rd base, but we'll see how he does everything.
Beasty has told me on multiple occasions how he just thinks mech is superior to bio or even marine tank in almost every way. Because for everything that the Marines can do early on, Hellions control better. And for all your problems in terms of holding off all-ins, the Banshees scout it very well. And Beasty's been doing that kind of style even before MVP made it cool, in a sense that, like, you're winning tournaments with just mech. He stops at 2 Banshees and then doesn't even go cloak, and then uses that gas to be able to get even more factories out earlier, and still will go for double armory. That was his kind of style for a long time, and then he was like working on it with a bunch of other Terrans, and then MVP decided to kind of go double armory first while squeezing out Thors, and now it's kind of like the big deal at the time. And now I'm really curious to see where Beasty goes. Is he going to go for the cloak? Is he going to just go for 2 Banshees, or is he going to keep going for Banshees and go for more of the Hellion Thor style?
As I was saying, I think Hellion Thor is not as good on this map as other maps. Let's say Ohana, I think it's a lot better to mech, but BeastyQT is looking like he wants to actually mech on this map yet again. The main reason is because of the counterattacking options. I mean, Zerg has so many ways of going around the mech army and doing base trades. And base trades are actually pretty nice when you're going up against mech. It's very easy to actually just kill some expansions, drop back, and then you have a full surround on that mech. And that's when it's really, really cool. Especially on Cloud Kingdom, there's a lot of little ledges, a lot of different places where you can fungal stuff down and then actually start neural parasiting. And I think neural parasite is probably one of the most underused spells when you're playing mech, or excuse me, when you're playing against mech. But as we can see, BeastyQT putting down his 3rd and 4th gas, most likely indicative of more factories to come up. But still hasn't made any. This is kind of deceiving. It looks like he's actually making a barracks for units, but this is definitely going to be lifted off. There you go.
Yeah. Very nice little Q play from BC as well, using the rocks to kind of kill off creep tumors that he knows exist at the bottom of the ramp. It's really funny too, right? Like how you know, you're able to use the splash damage to like kill like enemy units, but like when your own units stand in the fire, they don't get hit. But when you target, all of a sudden it decides to hit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so you chose not to hit me this time, but because you chose to target me, it actually finally hits.
Dude, that's like when you're like attacking a rock and then there's like Zerglings underneath or something. It's like, why can't you just attack the ground and do exactly the same thing? It's like you're wasting your time, bro.
It's pretty funny.
But that being said, BeastyQT is following this up with, as you said, 2 Banshees, but he did get Cloak this time. Now, this could be an adjustment just to, I guess, regular metagame styles. I know a lot of builds actually progress or even, you know, change up as you start to develop it. So this could just be very well his new standard. But doesn't mean, I know for a fact he did do that, as BeastyQT is definitely one of the players that I most watched, I think, recently.
Beastie only cloaks one of the Banshees, really trying to bait out the Queens into a tough position while microing his Hellions very nicely, making sure not even to lose one.
Yep, and it looks like he takes out the 2nd Queen, and the 3rd Queen is going to go down here. Wow, BeastyQT doing so well. There's a single Spine Crawler over here, but as soon as this the Banshees actually take it out, look at how many drones are going down. My God, Frodan, BeastyQT is tearing this 3rd base apart.
This is way too much damage for what Beastie was expecting. You know, the Queens not even able to take out the Banshees, and that alone means this third is in jeopardy, because the Queen that pops out, well, depends on how much damage the Banshees can pull off here. Oh, Beastie's actually just going to let it go at this point, which is fine, because his 3rd is perfectly safe. Oh, look at this. This is actually really cute. You see that bunker? Sneaked up all nice at the barracks.
Oh, wow.
That's actually really cool. Never thought of that.
That is cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Only like
Never knew that even fit there.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's super cute. It's like a mini planetary fortress, except an SCV actually does not attack out of a bunker, so he needs to replace that. But still, very cool, Frodan.
This 3rd is not safe for a follow-up timing if Beastie chooses to go for a 1-1 push. That's kind of the nature. Like it's really tough. That's why Dark has to make banelings. He doesn't know if a follow-up push just to dive the hatchery and kind of like defend up from their point, and you just fall behind economically. Although Beastie is going for Hellion Thors and adding on a few more factors, so now he's going to start kicking into full production. And of course, you guys, this is where a lot of styles within the MVP start to deviate a little bit. When do you start transitioning into siege tanks? Do you even go for siege tanks until you have even 2-2 finished? And that changes up per player. Andre, what kind of style do you like in terms of seeing Hellion Thor? And when do you think it's a good time to incorporate tanks again?
I think tanks should always be incorporated very gradually. You need to have that Thor count whatever you're going up against. Especially on this map, there's small little chokes. You need to take advantage of that. Siege tank can slowly get up on this high ground and just supplement as you start to take your 4th base. But it's important not to do it too fast or too slow. If you do it too fast, then you're actually open to a lot of air attacks, which are a threat, but in this game, not so much. If you do it too slowly, then roaches will actually start to overpower your Thors, even though that sounds really weird. You know, just the sheer quantity of roaches will be too much, and you can't focus fire the roaches down in time. So you need that AoE. It's a very delicate balance.
Yep. Now, it's interesting because this is kind of like the conventional response that we've been seeing out of a lot of players, which is rush infestors. But even then, with Hellion Thor, that's kind of what the Banshees are for. to really kind of disable the infestor count. You can see that Beasty now sees them, splits them up and cloaks them, trying to see if he can also limit the number of creep tumors on the map. And as long as he's clever about it, Beasty can still even disable a couple infestors just like that, trading a Banshee or two per infestor, even dropping an auto turret to deal with some of the units. Very clever. He does save the Raven,
which is the most important unit. Yes. The Raven actually has a lot of utility, not only for taking out those creep tumors. You can do just soft harassment as well, especially over here on the left-hand side with some auto turrets. And of course, PDD. PDD is actually really helpful to empower your Banshees. Now, that sounds really weird, but a lot of times when it's those 5 to 10 second battles, your Banshees are actually doing a lot of damage to, let's say, the infestors. And the infestors don't have the time to actually stay there. So normally your anti-air is what? Like Queens or even Corruptors, that sometimes placing that PDD could be all the difference to keep your Banshees alive. That way they're still killing those infestors.
And now Beasty has such a strong 4-base economy that he's going to be able to pump out units very consistently. Although he's given enough time for Dark to set up his own economy. He now has Hive on the way, and this is actually a really powerful timing as well. The pre-Hive timing where you incorporate tanks back into your lineup and then start pushing really heavily. One thing that's actually really curious is that BC researches Secret Missile way ahead of time before he even has mass starports out. But I also like the dabbling of sprinkling extra command centers at this stage of the game, really trying to already think about late game transition, because that's where Beasty shines.
That's right. I mean, really, when you're playing mech, you have to actually trade out SCVs at some point, because just straight up mech with 70 SCVs is not going to hold against Broodlord Infestor. You can see a couple of Hellion run-bys are going to try to do it a little bit of damage, but this is really just to, I guess, trade units for time. He's just trying to delay his opponent's economy, not really get anything out of it. Just say, okay, I want to trade these minerals and wait until I have more gas, and then I can actually push out.
Yeah, the trading for minerals is so key, except that now Hive is done and BC still hasn't made any move out yet. He's doing this very methodically and carefully, even putting up a sensor tower, which is very key, especially around this area, around the 4th base from Beasty, because there's a lot of counterattack paths. There's, down the ramp, there's around, and there's even crossing across the middle of the ramp by the watchtower, so you have to be very cautious about it. So this is kind of cute. But now that Hive Tech is done, Andre, do you feel like Beasty is being too passive, or do you think it's still a good move to keep turtling like this?
I think this is fine. Turtling like this is perfect, because what he's doing is actually threatening some sort of huge push. And although it's still a little bit scary, because you're like, oh, Broodlords might be on the way out right now, just the sheer power of this army should be able to hit no matter what. Even if there's a sprinkle of 2 or 3 Broodlords, you really can't get that Broodlord count up in time to deal with this mass force.
No, he's not going to be able to do this at all. There's so many units. Dark!
Whoa,
wow. Trying to go for a huge ambush. The Infestors are running face first into his opponent. Beasty was not expecting that whatsoever, talking about getting sucker punched, and all of a sudden Beasty's army got completely crushed. Whoa! Man, talk about crazy aggression from Dark out of nowhere, spontaneous. Andre, you just showed me a video of a kid trying to bully another kid, and the guy just fought back and slammed into the ground. I feel like I just watched a StarCraft representation of that.
Jesus. I mean, that was like the coolest thing ever, just overwhelming numbers of units. It's roaches, it's zerglings, it's infested Terrans, and there's just not enough stuff. I thought BeastyQT was actually going to clean everything up. The army didn't feel like it was capable of actually taking out all of BeastyQT's units, but I was proved wrong. I swear, Dark is so sick, man.
Imagine if he controlled that ramp, though. With that many tanks and Thors to clog up everything,
oh yeah,
Dark would not be able to do anything. His Hive Tech was still in the middle of production. And that kind of loss is huge. Sure, Dark did lose a lot there in that exchange as well. Not just even in the units he lost, but even the energy. So a lot of time. He's going to need a lot of time, but that's what he gets, because mech takes forever to rebuild. Well, not actually forever, but it feels like forever.
No, it's a very long time.
It's like that time period that songwriters write about where things feel like forever, but it's really not forever, like Bruno Mars says, right?
I don't know.
I'm just talking about how they always exaggerate in the love songs, man. Like, I'll never love like this forever. It's like, oh, come on, man. Forever's a long time. But that's what it feels like in this case, especially when you're going mech, man. And Thors take a whole minute to make.
Yeah,
it
that's
takes
right.
forever.
And you need to have some sort of ground control too, because in a blink of an eye, after these Broodlords are dead, you know, Zerg can very easily change over to a mass ground army. It's just the fact that you give Zerg so much time, they're able to actually bank so many minerals and gas that switching to something like Ultras or anything really is really accessible. You can see Infested Terrans going down here, and there's no good way to deal with this, Frodan. I mean, you need a ton of Hellions to deal with this effectively, and Hellions aren't the best DPSers against, you know, Broodlords.
Yeah, Beastie trying to handle the Infested Terran problem, but they still have a long way to last. Now, AoE is a nice way to clear it up, and Beastie does stabilize. In fact, the Viking count is pretty significant, and there's no real anti-air. But here comes Dark with a huge pack of banings, and Zerg's trying to flank all the tanks. And Beastie doesn't really have any support units to deal with this, so the units will just roll on through. Beastie's control over his side of the map is getting significantly weakened again, while Dark is still making an incredible amount of units, although they're all Zerglings. Has to be very cautious about where he goes from here, because tanks and Hellions can deal with hundreds of Zerglings very easily.
And you know, Tank Hellion is actually the best composition to be going against any Zerg ground army. I mean, they're able to kill everything. You get to this point where you just have so many siege tanks, and they can't be touched, because not only the AoE, but those Hellions just do such a great job. But look at this, just so many Infestors and Zerglings right here. You can see by the supply is 130 to 200, and most of that supply is in Infestors. And look how fast! Oh my God, Frodan, that command center went down so fast.
Didn't have building armor.
It didn't. It would have stayed a little. No.
Beastie is, I mean, he has a starports ready to transition, but he doesn't have the gas punch to really back it up. He's making Vikings as well when there's no real amount of Broodlords out, so these Vikings are forced to get on the ground and engage. Beastie's slowly but surely losing his grasp upon his ability to even stabilize because of how aggressive Dark's being able to do and trade with efficiency because of Infested Terrans and Zerglings. That's almost free at this stage of the game because of how much Dark's able to control the map. He's got 6 bases already, the bottom right's established with a healthy drone count. Beastie losing even the watchtower. And now Beastie really has to stabilize because he can't even really afford to put up another planetary.
Yeah, if he loses another base like that, he's dead. I mean, there's no real good way to actually continue these attacks. I mean, he's trading way too inefficiently. And, you know, if you actually purchase a siege tank for a minute straight, that's 200 gas. You're just about spending all the gas that you get from one base. And these gases are mining out really, really fast. So when these main gases mine out, I mean, BC is really committed to only 2 bases. And that's basically like saying you can only get 2 rounds of siege tanks every minute. That's not that good.
Well, Beastie's still doing what he can, running by units or Hellions to kill off some workers, but the worker count is still very healthy for Dark. It's at 80. And that's actually kind of misleading because Beastie's army is still large. His supply deficit is in the workers. He only has 44 workers right now.
Yeah.
So he does have a pretty strong integrity to his army, and he's got a lot of mules that are waiting to mine, but he's kind of nervous about those Infested Terrans. I think Beastie, how do you go from here, Andre? What does he need to do? There's so many Infestors. Can he even realistically deal with this? He needs all these mules.
Oh, no, and here they come. Units on the low ground, not that many, and you can see the Infested Terrans are just doing so much damage yet again, Frodan. This is classic Dark. He just keeps going with the Infested Terrans. How does he keep doing this?
There's no more space, man. There's no more space for Infested Terrans. They're actually sabotaging themselves because of how lack of space. Andre, I lived in Jersey all my life, and I still haven't seen this much population density.
It's the #1 most populated, dense state in the U.S., actually.
Yes, it is. That's what I was saying, man.
Wow.
I lived in Jersey, and those Infested Terrans seem even more crowded. It's crazy. This is getting out of control. 41 Infestors. Andre, he's making 5 more Infestors. This is getting a little bit out of hand, Andre.
This is patented Dark, man.
This is
Dark at
I'm laughing
best.
because this is like something we kind of joke about, like how he just doesn't stop making Infestors. It doesn't matter if you have the best response to him.
Oh, wow. Hunter Seeker missiles did actually surprisingly well, cleaned up a lot of them, but look at that, he just recycles even more. The orbital command center going down now, and that's sure to fall.
Some people would say that the D button, the S and D buttons are the most worn out keys on a Xur keyboard. It's F.
Yeah.
It's F and T for how many times he's pressing fungal, infestors, and infested Terrans. Beasty now has battle cruisers out into the field, but something that's actually really crucial is +3 air plating, ship plating. You want the battle cruisers to have lots of durability, especially against things like infested Terrans. Here comes a huge attack. Beasty running on his last gasps of fresh air. Can he survive yet another volley of this infestor legion? This is nuts. They can't even go up on the ramp at the same time. There's just so many. Imagine if you can get like 2 seeker missiles in that batch.
It would be beautiful.
It would be a sight to watch. It would be the fireworks. It'd be 4th of July, man.
But you see the mineral and gas bank that's going on for Beasty. I mean, or excuse me, not Beasty,
for Dark.
For Dark, yeah. Dark's the one that's just
he doesn't need tier 3, man.
So much stuff, and it's because he hasn't spent anything, Frodan.
He's expanding into Beasty's zone.
Yeah, I mean, it is the biggest get out of my game, if anything.
Oh man, Dark is he's doing this so methodically, and it's kind of true because you can't actually kill Beasty unless you're in his production line. And infestors really can't get there. They're a support unit, and that's what makes this so, I guess, entertaining in a sense, because he's winning with, I guess, just infestors. His Brewlords that came out did nothing. The Zerglings and Roaches, they helped flank, but it was really the infested Terrans that did everything. Dark is really showing us why this unit has been such a big controversial figure in all matchups.
Fungal growth and infested Terrans, are you kidding me?
When people thought fungal was so bad to deal with, try dealing with, how many infested Terrans can each? 8, right? You can
Max
drop
8. Yes.
He's got 44 infestors, Andre.
That's a lot.
264
264
infested Terrans max that you can drop.
Sweet
Jesus. That has +2. That has insane DPS that shoots as fast as a Marine with 10 damage apiece. You're telling me that's hard? Seeker Missile do light up some Brewlords, but that's not the main concern, Andre, is it?
Nope, it's not. GG gets called up for BeastyQT. He knows what's going to follow after this. And Dark will take another game, going 3-0 so far. 2-0 against Lowly.
Man, that game was so ridiculous, and the game is still going on, this replay. Dark was still having fun with it. Even Beastie still leading the game. Dark, very entertaining with his infestor style. Is there, what happened? Do you think Beastie just got a little bit too impatient, didn't wait for the creep, or was it Dark recognizing an opportunity?
The definitive moment was, of course, the first major battle that we saw when basically
how can Dark make a call like that, though?
I don't know how Dark
that
actually
was like insane snap decision call.
Because honestly, I feel like those pushes shouldn't work. But what was interesting about it is that everything was clumped. All the Terran ball was clumped, which is normally good. But the interesting composition that Dark went was Banelings, which you normally don't see.
Roach, Baneling, Infestor.
Yeah, Roach, Baneling, Infestor, but a very heavy emphasis on Infestor and Banelings. And I was like, oh, well, Dark doesn't really have much substance to his army. But it was so interesting what he was doing. He was fungling the Hellions so that it empowers the infested Terrans. Hellions are the best way to deal with all of those infested Terrans. They're light, so they do extra damage against them. But he went for the trade and then just said, my infestors are going to take over directly after this. And that's something that's so cool. Limit the Hellion count, and then you can basically do whatever you want. After the first attack was finished, I mean, Dark knew he had the big economic advantage, and he was able to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, the 4th was just so close to the point of combat. And great creep spread also. That was a really unsung hero by Dark as he takes game number 1. That game was brought to you by Squarespace. For a special offer on things like website creation, go to nasl.tv/p/Squarespace for a great offer for all your website needs. When we return, game number 2 between Beastie and Dark. Let's see what the European Terran can scrap against this infestor, crazy mad scientist. We'll be back after this. Don't go anywhere. This is Week 4 Division 3.